Mindhunter is a dark, tense, and thrilling crime show, but it contains almost no action. Besides the opening scene of Season 1, we don't actually see violence take place on screen. Instead, most of the focus of the show is on conversations and information about crime and psychology. So how does Mindhunter make information and conversation so dramatic and thrilling, drawing you into a story that could easily be dry and academic? In this video, I'll show you 6 of the techniques creators Joe Penhall and David Fincher use in the writing, direction, and cinematography to draw you into the world of Mindhunter. There will be spoilers for Season 1, but while I'll use examples from Season 2, the video is free of major plot spoilers for the second season.
I mean, we still can't rule out a sequence killer, but if the perpetrator was a townie, then the crime is random and there's no expectation that he'll be repeating it.
Here's my question. Shouldn't our funding cover separate rooms?
You don't like my company?
Generally, what grabs the viewer's attention is conflict and drama, not exposition or information.
You're really gonna go golfing while I glean profound insights from the co-ed killer?
It's my day off.
You're gonna be sorry.
Most crime shows rely on the drama created in the pursuit of a criminal. While there are investigations in Mindhunter, much of the story lies outside of those investigations, focusing instead on the development of psychological profiling as a method of investigation. Understanding that story requires a lot of exposition and information to be communicated to the audience.
Ooh, paperwork?
Yeah, it's hardly sexy, but I'm trying to put together a list of questions for the killers that you interview. Things like their family history, mood, thought patterns before, during, and after the crime.
Mindhunter makes that information and exposition more interesting by giving the information dramatic weight in the characters' lives.
You want to know what I do? You want to see what I work on every night? Come on.
Mindhunter spends a lot of time exploring how the work the agents are doing impacts them personally. Holden has to find the balance between pursuing the knowledge he wants to obtain and the psychological toll of trying to understand how serial killers think will have on him.
There's nothing wrong.
If what we're doing doesn't get under your skin, you're either more screwed up than I thought or you're kidding yourself.
Tench has to balance the good he can do through his work with the impact it has on him and his family.
You have to bring that home? What do you do with it?
Examine it for clues.
You don't tell me a thing about what you do.
Now you know why.
You don't need to protect me, Bill.
I'm trying to protect everybody.
No, you need to protect your son.
And Dr. Carr has to balance the work against hiding who she is.
Do they know you're lesbian?
Of course not.
Exactly. You can't be yourself.
For each member of the team, their journey into learning the psychology of these criminals creates conflict in their lives that they must work to overcome.
Binary thinking could hamstring you when it comes to critical assessment of our subjects. We need to understand the gray areas.
The world is complex, I get that.
Mindhunter uses its cinematography to illustrate this drama in the characters' lives. Holden is the main protagonist of Season 1, and so much of the season focuses on the drama the work creates in his life, and his fight to accomplish that work within the bureaucracy of the FBI. In the traditional visual style of David Fincher, almost all the shots are very steady, precise dolly shots, giving the camera a very objective perspective. We see things clearly and from a distance, which is how Holden is trying to approach the subject matter. Throughout the season, the camera remains steady even as Holden's emotional state begins to deteriorate, until finally he breaks and panics. In this moment at the end of Season 1, we get the only 2 handheld shots in the entire first season of the show. Putting us directly inside Holden's panic. Many shows frequently use handheld cinematography, but it often doesn't have as much impact on the viewer as these shots do here. By withholding a specific technique throughout an entire season and then strategically deploying it, it helps give the climax of the first season some serious dramatic weight. In Season 2, Holden gets what he wants from within the FBI.
These ideas aren't just progressive, they're practical and effective. You've proven that.
I've tried, but it's been a battle.
But the audience now questions whether or not that's a good thing for his mental health. Camera shake can now be used throughout Season 2 to occasionally signify panic and remind us that he could snap again. As Holden leaves his relationship behind at the end of Season 1, Bill Tench and Wendy Carr's personal lives become more of the focus in Season 2, and the cinematography is used to support this. Season 2 often uses slightly more subjective perspectives of these characters than we see in Season 1, placing the audience closer to Bill and Wendy's emotional states. Mindhunter uses cinematography carefully to draw us into the characters' lives, showing us the toll that the work has on their relationships and the conflict it causes in them. Seeing this makes us more invested both in their individual stories and the work they're pursuing. As we've just seen, the information and the work creates drama in the characters' lives on a macro scale across episodes and seasons, but Mindhunter often increases the drama of expositional conversations by inserting smaller conflicts and disagreements between characters into individual scenes. In a scene like this of Holden and Tench interviewing Richard Speck, the writers could have relied on the simple drama of what Richard Speck is talking about, but they insert an additional layer of conflict. In this scene, it's Holden and Tench's disagreement over the interviewing style.
Oh. Did you give it a name?
Which is established simply through a small look. Inserting conflict in these ways captures our attention, pulling our focus towards the conflict, while the characters talk about information that moves the plot forward. This technique is used for almost every interview with a serial killer.
Showing mercy.
What? Come on, kid. You don't expect us to buy your mercy horseshit.
I think what Agent Tench means...
But we can see examples of this in many scenes throughout the entire show. This scene from Season 1 inserts conflict into a scene because Debbie is trying to focus.
What are you reading?
And Holden wants to talk. This conflict creates a dramatic backdrop for some exposition about psychology that relates to a case Holden is working on.
I wonder if that's why everyone's so confused about Roger. He's taking an activity normally reserved for family members at home and applying it to the wrong environment.
This scene from Season 2 does something similar, establishing interpersonal conflict in the scene.
You know, whose test is this, yours or mine?
Just trying to get to know you.
Oh, feels a little like you're trying to get to correct me.
Well, would you rather tell me about whatever it is that you're burying your face in?
That leads to exposition about Dr. Carr's last interview.
It's just a fine line of giving them enough attention so that they'll engage with you, but also being able to steer the conversation. And when it's over in just a few minutes, it
wasn't worth the effort.
He was surprisingly forthcoming in the beginning. He answered every question, even volunteered information.
In nearly every scene, there's some element of interpersonal conflict or disagreement between two or more characters that makes the conversations more interesting and engaging.
The Jeter boy's been missing almost a week. We have to move, Holden.
You can't force a square peg into a round hole just because you prefer it to fit.
Bill!
Sometimes you don't even need conflict, just the possibility of conflict to create tension. Tension is created in this scene through the visual and contextual setup. The subject doesn't want to be seen.
Nerve damage from the shooting. Remember to face forward.
And so Bill Tench can't look at him. The gun in the truck raises the stakes. Nothing has to happen in the scene, but there's a feeling that things could escalate very easily. Without any action, conversation after conversation could become monotonous. Mindhunter keeps things interesting by setting conversations in interesting places, placing an argument between Holden and his girlfriend in a grocery store, or having the agents walk and talk instead of sitting in a meeting room, gives these conversations more variety and makes them more interesting to the audience. And sometimes it just comes down to using a location in an interesting way. In this scene from Season 2, this conversation could have all happened sitting at a desk, but instead the location of the conversation moves 4 times over the course of the entire scene, allowing for greater variety of composition and character blocking. In this scene, the loud environment of the bar forces the characters to shout.
Maybe one of the things wrong with our society is all the criminality.
I'm talking from a sociological perspective.
In this one, the environment forces the characters to whisper.
We could do a shorter scroll beat out in 6 weeks. Vance, did something happen? I am thinking of Brian.
Both provide variety and make the audience pay closer attention to what's being said. Another way Mindhunter keeps its conversations fresh is through strong and interesting visual composition. often using character blocking and composition inspired by the noir crime films of the 40s and 50s. These kinds of shots give the audience more visual information to examine and learn from. Many shows or films can fall into the trap of having conversation after conversation take place with the characters simply sitting across from each other, composing the scenes with basic, medium, and over-the-shoulder shots. But Mindhunter uses the placement of characters within wider shots to communicate subtext. For example, we can see the conflict between Holden and Tench in this shot simply through the distance between them in the frame. This shot from Season 2 references this shot from Season 1, and communicates very effectively how Dr. Carr is feeling about her position in the team. Finally, Mindhunter rewards those who are paying attention to all the criminal psychology that's being discussed by giving its characters and the audience opportunities to apply that knowledge to understanding characters and scenes.
I watch all the cop shows on TV.
Do you know, Joseph Wambaugh? Police Story, you ever watch that?
Huge fan.
Oh.
Just came walking up off the street. Hey, what happened? Did anybody see? You've been drinking. One of these guys that likes talking to cops, you know?
There are several small cases throughout Season 1 and a central case in Season 2, and the details of these cases often hinge on what's being discussed in the interviews and discussions about criminal psychology. But Mindhunter often leaves those connections between the interviews and the cases up to the audience to discover, sometimes episodes apart. Allowing the audience to draw these connections on their own increases their engagement. The short scenes at the beginning of most episodes that show a mysterious man preparing for a killing serve a similar purpose to the cases. They're not just setting up future seasons, they give the audience an opportunity to look for clues and to try to psychologically profile a character on their own. There are plenty of small details and connections you can catch, like the knots the killer is practicing being similar to the ones in this photo from a crime scene shown an episode later. Mindhunter is effectively rewarding the audience member who is paying attention and examining the criminals in the same way the lead characters are. Every story needs drama and conflict to draw in its audience. But Mindhunter's subject matter and non-traditional approach to a crime show requires it to be inventive with how it creates that drama and conflict. As we've seen here, careful crafting of scenes and intentional use of cinematography are critical not only in establishing but selling that conflict, pulling the audience deeper into the minds of the characters as they explore the minds of some of the worst criminals on Earth.